UFC president Dana White went on Shaq's podcast where he talked about the possibility of Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira, as well as the possibility of Conor McGregor returning against Max Holloway. Now, I wanted to do a video discussing Jon Jones recently being pressed with criminal charges, so we're going to talk about that. But what Dana White said about Jon Jones and talked about Jon Jones, Alex Pereira for a very brief second, this was one of the most hysterical clips I've seen of all time. I mean, I know Dana White's been going out there and, just hyping up Jon Jones left and right and the whole pound for pound thing. But this clip from Shaq's podcast is one of the funniest clips I've seen of all time from Dana White. Now, in terms of the clip where he discusses Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway, it spawned an idea in my head. And I'm not ready to commit full-fledged to this happening yet. And you can decide for yourself as I present the evidence. I think there's a chance the UFC's thinking about booking Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway for the BMF title. It kind of makes sense. So I'm going to get to that theory. I'm going to get to that clip. I want to start off right away, though. Jon Jones charged with 2 misdemeanors in a case involving a drug testing agent. Now, I did an entire video breakdown on this entire topic when it initially happened with the security footage and the police report and all that good stuff. I'm not going to go into that level of detail for this video because I want to move on to the Dana White clip talking about Jon Jones. But basically, UFC heavyweight champion Jon Jones has been charged with 2 misdemeanors in a case involving a drug testing agent who filed a police report about his alleged behavior during a sample collection at Jones' home on March 30th. Jones is charged with assault, a petty misdemeanor, and interference with communication, a misdemeanor. And it goes on to give some more information. It says, if convicted of both full charges, Jones could face jail time that would be less than 1 year, as well as a $500 fine for petty misdemeanor, up to $1,000 for the misdemeanor. Now, let me give my thoughts on this, okay? And maybe we'll find out more information. Maybe we won't. I don't know. I'm assuming we're going to find out more information about this. But based off the police report, the accusation against Jones in this case is basically that the drug testing agent showed up and that Jon Jones got an attitude with him and at one point in time picked up the drug testing agent's phone, took it away from him, and then gave it back to him. Look, I know, and I've seen an article, apparently Daniel Cormier has come out and kind of defended Jon Jones. I know Jon Jones has a history of dumb shit. And it's just annoying that he's even involved in this. And I know the whole Jon Jones situation right now with he's fighting Stipe, and the UFC wants him to fight Stipe, and Stipe's been sitting out for 3 years after getting folded like a lawn chair, and we all want to see Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall. So I know it's really easy to pile on Jon Jones, and I've seen some people say, like, maybe he'll get stripped because of this. That's never going to happen in a million years. We talked about that on a recent live stream. 2 misdemeanors, and then obviously you see, if convicted of both charges, Jones could face jail time with total less than 1 year, as well as a $500 fine for a petty misdemeanor up to $1,000. Look, I'm going to be honest. I think nothing comes of this. I think if anything, maybe Jones pleads to a no contest and maybe pays some type of fine. What it struck me as, when I initially read the police report, essentially the drug testing agent showed up. Jon Jones was a little drunk, got a little shitty. The one woman drug testing agent act like, yeah, I was scared Jones was going to hit me, but she never implied that Jones threatened to hit her. So it was a very bizarre scenario, or at least a police report in general. And it just seems with the charges, again, they're both misdemeanors. It's annoying that Jones is even involved in stuff like this, especially when it comes to drug testing agents. I don't think anything's going to happen. I think Jon Jones is going to still be UFC champion unless he gets injured, unless there's some type of delay that's not caused by this, because this isn't going to cause a major delay. They'll let him fight with any criminal charges pressed against him. They'll say, oh, that's between him and the courts. He's a star. He's a draw. He's going to get Dana White privilege. They're not going to care about this at all. They're not even going to speak about it at all. And nothing's going to happen. So I think there's a chance Jones versus Stipe could never happen. And we'll talk about that in a second when we look at the clip about Pereira. But unless there's like an injury or something along those lines, they're not stripping Jones. They're not going to move on from Jones. Jones will defend the UFC heavyweight title. Now, who it will be against? It's looking like Stipe Miocic, unfortunately. But I just wanted to include this. The 2 misdemeanors aren't going to matter at all. Now, we move on to Shaq's podcast. We're going to look at a clip of Dana White asked by Shaq, what about Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira? Which Joe Rogan was pushing for after UFC 303, which made absolutely no sense, by the way. I know that's a fun, like, crazy fight, 2 names, the former light heavyweight champion, and then Pereira, who's kind of made a name at 205. The only guy that's kind of made a name at 205 since Jones left. But why would we make this fight when Pereira's defended his belt twice and we have Magomed Ankalaev waiting in the wings? It makes no sense. But instead of Dana actually answering the question, listen to the diatribe he goes on. You're not even going to believe this. I joked in like a video when Dana did an interview with Pat McAfee show. I joked, yeah, the dogs and the guns and the spray paint cans. I am not kidding you. He launches into that diatribe. When I saw this clip, I knew I had to include it in the video. Listen to this.
Will we ever see Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira?
It's a possibility. I mean, Rogan is pushing me right now to try to make that fight.
Why does Rogan get obsessed with certain things? He was obsessed with Israel Adesanya's feints against Jan Blachowicz. And now he really you remember when he was pushing Jan Blachowicz after the draw against Magomed Ankalaev, he was pushing Jan Blachowicz to say he lost. And now he's really pushing for Pereira versus Jones.
It's just, guys, let me explain something to you. Jon Jones is a whole nother. I consider Jon Jones the greatest combat fighter of all time.
By the way, why did he start whispering here? He's like, yeah, I got to talk about what a badass Jon Jones is. He's got his power slap cup ready to go, and now he's whispering.
You talk about the Ali's and the this and the that.
Oh, and that? Wow.
And let me tell you what, I got Ali's picture hung everywhere. I love Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
I love Mike Tyson. Jon Jones is the nastiest dude ever in the history. And
wait till you hear what he says here, guys.
always say this about John's got a dark side to him, man. John's got like those dogs that'll rip your arms apart and do all that.
Is this guy serious? Dana's checked out. Yeah, John's got a dark side to him. He owns 2 dogs, which he calls German Shepherds, but they're Belgian Malinois. Yeah, they'll rip you apart. But it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. The promotion of Jon Jones does not end there.
He shoots guns. Jon Jones is a killer in every way that you can be. When the stuff was going on during COVID and there was riots and people were spray painting, Jon Jones went into town and was taking spray cans out of people's hands and slapping them and saying,
how does that make you a badass? Owning 2 dogs, shooting guns, and slapping a spray paint can out of a teenager's hand. What is Dana doing, man? I'm telling you right now, and I want you guys to keep doing this. Put pressure on the UFC. Complain, comment sections, wherever you can. We don't want to see Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic, because I think Dana's feeling the pressure, and that's why he's been so complimentary of Jon Jones recently, and that's why he's pushing the pound-for-pound argument, and that's why he's saying, yeah, he's got dogs. He smacks spray paint cans out of people's hands. He's a vigilante. Next thing you know, he's going to be like, yeah, he dresses up as Batman, and he stopped a bank robber. It's just getting old.
And go home. You're not my town. And
look, they're laughing at him. They're laughing at him because he's saying that. And that's the popular clip that's been going around. There's more because I listened to about a 20-minute section of this podcast, maybe a little bit less. By the way, I will link this entire podcast down below. Also, if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. I would greatly appreciate it. But there's more. There's more. He's asked about his favorite fighters later on in this show. He's asked about his favorite fighters, and someone says, well, what about Jon Jones? And he's like, well, I was talking about favorite fighters to work with, but Jon Jones, and goes on another Jon Jones diatribe.
It's been interesting.
Listen, and that's the thing about when I talk about Jon Jones, it's not like I'm trying to say, these other people that had great relationships are the greatest of all time.
No.
Jon Jones and I have not had a great relationship as far as business goes. But that doesn't, twist my judgment.
Right.
He is the greatest combat fighter of all time. Period. End of story. There's not even an argument.
So there you go. A little bit more of Rim Jon Jones, which Jon Jones is the GOAT. I'm glad he's not saying pound for pound anymore. I'm glad he's not going into all that. So we're going to skip ahead to the clip where he discusses Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway, and he also discusses Conor McGregor's fighting future as well as a brief mention of Michael Chandler. But before we get into that, when I heard this clip, It reminded me of some back and forth between Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria recently on Twitter. As recent, well, it's not. It's super. There's some that are recent in July, but there's some that are back in May. You have Ilia Topuria. I never turned down a rematch with Alex as the UFC never offered me this fight. As I've said many times, I'll be the first to knock out Holloway. Let's keep this simple. Do you want the fight? If the answer is yes, then there's nothing more to discuss. Bring my belt and your pillow. Max Holloway responds, bro, you are the one making this hard enough already. I'll bring your belt, the bitching motherfucker. All you are doing is putting words together now. You're spiraling. So a little bit of back and forth. Then you have an update from Ilia Topuria. I'm not going to play the audio because it's in Spanish. And he basically says, you can read the captions there, Max Holloway's having issues with his family. Apparently he's going to have issues cutting weight back down to featherweight. Something along those lines, okay? And this was back on July 3rd, so this wasn't that long ago. And also responded to Max Holloway. Max Holloway said this, guy's been making stuff up. And it says, choose a date, choose the way you want me to beat you, and write it here. I'm ready to turn off your lights whenever, wherever. Call Dana. And then the last tweet was, been talking to them, brother. You need to check your numbers since you said it's a sphere. Since you said it, the sphere by toehold. See you soon. This fight needs to get put together. But it's been a no-brainer since UFC 300. It's very bizarre that this fight isn't inked yet. So it got me thinking, what fight would they pass over to Topuria Holloway for? And the answer is Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway. Because if they could get Conor McGregor with a BMF belt on the line, that would be massive. Max Holloway propelled himself to another level of stardom with that KO at UFC 300, one of the biggest events of the year. And there's a chance that Dana White puts it together, and he answers here that there's a chance that he would put that fight together. Then he says, oh, well, there's a lot of fights, but Conor McGregor is, he's got a lot of money. Well, let's listen.
I hope I'm not pushing boundaries. Conor McGregor and Max Holloway. Will we?
By the way, I hope I'm not pushing the boundaries. Did he hear something about this behind the scenes? I'm genuinely wondering that. Dana's like, oh, let me take a sip out of my Power Slap cup here. I hope I'm not pushing the boundaries. That's such a random fight to ask about, considering nobody's really been talking about that.
See it, yes or no?
If Conor McGregor fights again, it's obviously a great fight.
Keyword, if Conor McGregor fights again. Is there more negotiating issues going on? We know that Conor McGregor only has 2 fights left on his deal. We know that it seemed like the UFC was trying to ice him because they wanted to re-sign him. But he says, if Conor fights again, and there's more.
It's a great fight. Him and Chandler is a great fight too. Conor and Chandler's a great fight. There's a lot of fights out there.
Imagine you're Michael Chandler. You've left your family in early January. You've been waiting for 2 years. And you hear there's a lot of great fights out there for Conor. And then you hear this from Dana White. This doesn't sound very confidence-inspiring. I don't know when this was recorded. If this was recorded before the Pat McAfee show where he said, yeah, we're hopeful it happens in 2024. But he goes on to talk about how Conor may never fight again.
For Conor. The Conor thing is much like Ronda. I mean, if you look at Ronda, so many opportunities fell on Ronda because of who she was and her personality, her looks, everything that she had as a package ended up being her downfall, right? It's just the money and everything else. Ronda went from living in her car to being so extremely wealthy that she doesn't have to work. She doesn't have to do anything.
So he's going to now lump in Conor like, well, Conor's made so much more money. And he's basically saying Conor may never fight again. Imagine you're hearing this as Michael Chandler.
She's got a great life. She's got like 3 or 4 houses and great places and all these things. And Conor McGregor is 10 times that. When that kind of money becomes, involved in the fight business, it's tough, man.
I can imagine.
Think about that. Think about that. Imagine you're Chandler and you're hearing Dana White talk about, yeah, Conor's got so much money. I know he's done this before. But this got me really thinking. These tweets aren't by coincidence. The fact that this fight hasn't been announced yet isn't by coincidence. Now, I'm not ready to die on this hill. I feel like Topuria Holloway has to be made. I'm going to be absolutely livid. I'm going to be pissed if it's not made. But would it shock anyone if Dana said, you know what? We're only going to have Conor McGregor for 2 more fights. He won't re-sign a new deal. He's hoping to go off to Saudi Arabia, and Turki Al-Sheikh can pay him a ridiculous purse. What's the biggest fight we can make? I'm telling you right now, outside of like Conor McGregor versus Khabib 2 or Conor McGregor versus Islam Makhachev, the biggest fight he could probably make is Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway. I'll say it again. Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler might as well be Conor McGregor versus a broomstick. Michael Chandler brings nothing to pay-per-view sales. So I just don't think these tweets are a coincidence. Maybe they are. Maybe they're still going to put it together. I hope and pray. And I'm not ready to commit to this theory yet. I'm just saying it really got me thinking about it. What if that's what they're doing? Maybe that's why they're taking so long to announce the schedule. Maybe they're going to we owe Volkanovski a rematch. And we're going to give Topuria Volkanovski for the rematch because Volkanovski has come out recently and said he wants to fight. That's still a big fight. And instead, as big as Topuria versus Holloway is, and it's a way better fight, McGregor versus Holloway is ginormous. It would do substantially better on pay-per-view. And guess what? 2024 is the end of the agreement with ESPN. The UFC is looking to sign a new agreement. They use the numbers from the pay-per-view sales to negotiate a new agreement, whether it's with ESPN, whether it's with Netflix, Amazon, whoever. What would help inflate those numbers? Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway, BMF title on the line. Conor constantly talks about wanting the BMF title. There's a story behind it. They fought in the past. Conor McGregor has a win over a young Max Holloway. So don't be surprised if somehow that happens. I mean, I hope that doesn't happen. I'm not, sitting here committing to it's going to happen, but I thought it was very interesting that he says, I'm not going to push these boundaries. And I thought it was worth covering in a video, as well as the Jon Jones, Alex Pereira stuff. I hope Jon Jones, Alex Pereira doesn't happen, at least not right now. We need to see him against Tom Aspinall if Tom Aspinall beats Curtis Blades. But I'll tell you right now, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked if they did Jon Jones, Alex Pereira, because that's a huge fight. Jon Jones would definitely want it because he's going to look at that as a favorable matchup. And it's, a big money fight. It's a bigger money fight than Tom Aspinall. So it would be a silver lining, I guess, if Stipe got skipped over because he doesn't deserve it. He's been sitting out for 3 years. But we'll see what happens. The UFC's done wonkier things. It seems like, the last 2 years we've gone down a slippery slope of undeserved title shot after undeserved title shot after undeserved title shot. Not that I'm saying Pereira doesn't deserve a title shot, but it doesn't really make sense for the heavyweight division. And then in terms of the BMF belt, it's just a gimmick belt. No one's going to complain if Conor fights for the BMF belt. I mean, how can you fight for the BMF belt after pulling out with a broken pinky toe? That's beyond me. But that's it. I wanted to discuss it in a video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.